obviously your great love has been all the works of Erickson. I think, you used to be studying it ever since, what, 14 or so?
13,
or
yeah.
13, 14 years. One thing I did notice, I mean, I've been on a lot of courses myself, and the thing is that they stick to what they teach. Okay, what their diploma says, they stick to it. But no disrespect to any of the other instructors, but when you get to talk to them, they don't seem to have a depth of knowledge. And you definitely have that knowledge. An incredible amount of knowledge, you know. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, lucky enough we've met, and I stick with you, and
Well, I think a part of it is a
Yes.
willingness to keep learning myself.
Yeah, that's right.
I got quite frustrated many years ago with the fact that I was doing my best to want to learn what I can to help people and help make people's lives better.
Yes.
And way back from, I don't know, probably 2001, 2002, people wanted me to teach hypnosis, and people had started talking about, oh, why don't you get an accredited course and all things like that. My trouble was I wanted the clinical experience first.
Yes.
I wanted people to come to me because they know that I've worked with real clients with a whole range of problems and been successful.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, I was getting quite frustrated because there was people that were doing 7-day NLP practitioner courses, doing another master practitioner course, followed by the trainer's training course, followed by then becoming an NLP trainer and just teaching it. And they'd had maybe 20 or 25 days training and then gone and taught it. And they did that in maybe the space of 3 or 4 months and have never actually seen a client other than maybe other students on the training courses.
Yeah.
And that would really frustrate me because I think, well, you know, you're making lots of money because you're teaching NLP courses.
Oh yes. Yeah.
But all you've done is done a NLP course,
Yeah.
master practitioner course, trainer's training course, and then you're teaching it. You haven't actually seen a real person. You haven't done any work. You haven't got experience of using it, so that you can then talk about your own experience of using it, as well as talking about all the knowledge you've learned. You haven't thought, right, I've learnt this from this course. For example, when I used to read, still do read, but when I used to read books about things like hypnosis, very early on when I was 13, 14, I'd read it and it'd be like, here it's about how to do hypnosis, and there'd be a little bit in there about history of hypnosis.
Yeah.
And in that, it would talk about different hypnotists. So I'd think, oh, I've got to go and learn about them. So I would then go and learn about
Yes.
Franz Anton Mesmer.
Oh,
I'd go and learn about Charcot. I'd go and learn about James Braid or James Esdale.
Yes.
I'd go and learn about these people
Yes.
and learn about what sort of things they did.
Yeah.
So my path was like a narrow path to start with, and then it would be, at that point, it now broadens because I now have to learn a bit about these different people as well.
Yeah.
And then it broadened further. So I then learned about Milton Erickson was mentioned once in one of my early hypnotherapy books,
Right.
almost
Yeah.
as a passing comment of, there's this sort of nut job kind of therapist who does this weird type of hypnosis, but that's not what you learn here. It was that kind of a comment. It's a very dismissive, negative.
Yes, yeah,
So I
would
didn't
be,
pay
right,
attention
much
to who Erickson was.
authoritarian,
I also bought into it and read that and thought, oh, well, I won't bother learning anything about him because everyone else was revered. It was like Franz Anton Mesmer was had a lot of stigma, but given the time, he didn't know what hypnosis was in his day, mesmerism. He didn't know what it was. He was coming up with the best conclusion he could for someone in the 1700s.
Yeah.
And when that conclusion was proved false, instead of people proving it false and thinking, but it still seems to work, they proved it false and thought, right, that's the end of it. So even though it was working, they just proved it false and thought, right, that's it. He was wrong about his theories. But the hypnosis books didn't talk negatively of most of these people, but they did, the ones I'd read early on, talk negatively about Erickson, and there would normally be just a line or two about him. So I didn't straight away go and learn about Erickson. It wasn't until I was learning about NLP when I saw in a hypnosis book, NLP is like an offshoot of hypnosis. It's based on some works of some hypnotists, and so I then thought, oh, let's learn a bit about it and see what this is. It says that it's, because my thing back then was everything was about structure. All hypnosis books said, follow this structure, do this, read this induction. So I thought, well, but what if I want to treat problems? how do I treat a problem that I don't have a script for?
With the same script.
Yeah, so
over and over again.
So I then started. It said NLP does that for you. NLP will have like the swish technique. It will have fast phobia cure. It has these things for these problems that are steps that you can follow. So I thought, well, steps that I can follow, that's easy. So I started reading about NLP, and then in there I read about NLP. Founders of it, predominantly John Grinder and Richard Bandler, and they studied the works of people like Milton Erickson, Virginia Satir, Gregory Bates, and all these other, a number of other great people. So I, at that point, thought, well, if these people are being classed as great people, maybe I need to be learning about them. Even though Milton Erickson had been brushed off in my hypnosis books, in the NLP books, he was revered. So I started learning about Erickson then. And that was when obviously I started, so I broadened it out, and that's when I started learning more about Erickson, his work and his approach. And that's been my approach with therapy training as well, that I don't just follow one narrow path and think, well, I did that training course and all my knowledge is only what was taught on that course. I learn more than that. So if on a course it says, this hour and a half lesson is going to be on attachment theory, for example, I'll learn about attachment theory for that hour and a half, and then I'll go away and I'll research John Bowlby, who attachment theory is based on, and I'll read his works and I'll learn about his works, and then I'll read more up-to-date work, and then I'll see the connection between his work that he did when he was alive many decades ago, all the way through to the work that people are doing now and the research that's out there now. And so I would have that kind of approach to my learning, that I won't just learn one little thing and think, well, I did that course and so that's the end of it. I'll learn it and I'll think, right, I found that fascinating on the course and that fascinating on the course, so let's start there.
I mean, if you go on a course, you got to, it's all set down, etc. What you're taught, but it does cause insecurity to step out of that and start looking in other areas, and that is, I think it's very, very important to
I
take
think everyone
to take
do that. Everyone should look at far more than what's on the course. For example, my biggest thing on the training I do is I want people to leave my training confident therapists. I don't expect them to leave the training being able to tell me the ins and outs of every single thing they've learned. I just want them to be good enough therapists in the sense that they're not going to cause harm to anyone, and confident therapists. Anything else they can learn as they go. They can learn through, as time goes on. So for example, one person might say, yes, I can tell you all the stages of the rewind technique. Someone else might say, well, I could do the rewind technique,
but they can't
but I couldn't describe it very easily to you. I couldn't tell you the exact stages, but I could do it in front of you.
Same as it embedded commands, etc.
And remembering the names of all different language patterns. One person might say, yes, I could reel off all the names of all the language patterns, but I couldn't do them. Another person might say, I wouldn't be able to tell you the names of what I'm doing, but I could do it. I could naturally sit in front of someone and just get it right.
Like Rossi.
So what I want is people to leave the training being confident therapists, saying, yes, I can go out there and I could see a client now and I'd be more than comfortable with dealing with them. And if I'm out of my depth, I know what I would do. Because that's the other side of it. It's, if they say, I plan on killing myself after this session, I want the therapist to say, I know in their head, I know how to handle this situation. I know what I'm going to do about this. I can't help this person, but I know. Hopefully they can help to some extent, but if they realise they can't, I want them to still say to themselves, I know I can't help this person, I know I'm going to have to do these steps to make this person safe, or do these steps to make someone else safe, or I want people that are confident therapists. I don't necessarily want people to think, yes, I know the ins and outs of every single bit and I can now go and teach this myself. I just want to give people a starting place with all that. And because there's a lot of content, there's, in my opinion, probably far more content than they really need. So I don't expect them to take it all in. But what I want is to say, look, there's all this, go and explore it yourself. So I have people get copies of my books. People get copies of about 100 hours of self-hypnosis, self-help MP3s and training MP3s that they can listen to in their own time, so that they can listen to my self-hypnosis MP3s, for example, and they can hear me using the language patterns. and they can hear how I'm doing it and what I'm aiming at and how I'm getting attention.
Yes.
And then when they learn about hypnosis, they can then say, oh yeah, I've heard when Dan was doing that on the track, I heard how he was doing that. I heard why he changed his voice tone there, or why he slowed down there, or why he paused for a minute and a half there. Or they can then understand that and they can listen to it and figure that out. Likewise with the 40 or 50 or so hours worth of training that people get as audio training, they can listen to that. So they've got it live, but they can then listen to it. So they can think, right, let's listen to that back. Let's listen to the audio tracks that teach about hypnosis. Let's listen to the audio tracks that teach about solution-focused therapy. Let's listen to the audio tracks that teach about healing. So I try and give as much as I can so that people do stuff. I don't want someone to turn up, say, because I'm hoping from September to be running the next 2 courses, one in 2 9-day chunks and one in weekends. And so I don't want people to just turn up at the weekends, say 9 to 5 Saturday and Sunday, and then between 5 p.m. on the Sunday and 9 a.m. on the next Saturday, that it takes place a month later, to not think about anything at all and not do anything. I want them to think, you know what, when I get home, I'm going to listen to some MP3s, I'm going to read some information, I'm going to go and research this on the internet, I'm going to look at the research on that, I'm going to go and do this, I'm going to go and do that. And I want people to do that. I want to stimulate, hopefully, excitement in people that makes them want to go and do these things. I want people to video things or audio record or whatever is useful for them to help them learn. So that if I'm giving a demonstration in front of people, they video it and then they can take it home and they can watch it and analyse it and think, you know, oh, in the feedback after the demonstration he said he did this, this, this and this. I missed that, so I want to watch it so I can see it happen, so I can then see, oh yeah, he did do those things, or oh, how did I miss that? Because it's like I watch people's breathing. Now I find it incredibly easy, but the number of people that say to me, oh, I just can't notice when someone's breathing. And I think, how can you not notice? Their whole body moves. You know, the sides move outwards and inwards. The whole chest moves outwards and inwards. The shoulders move upwards and downwards. The head often moves a bit as well. The nostrils move a bit. The mouth moves a bit. The throat moves a bit. The neck moves a bit. How can you not see all that? But I don't have a problem seeing it. But when people don't know to look for it,
something they've never really looked for.
When people have never looked for it, they don't see it. So if I then say after a demonstration, how many people noticed that I'd hypnotised the person by breathing in a certain way before I'd even said let's do the hypnosis? Most people say, did you? Well, I don't. So to watch it back and then see it themselves because they've recorded it. So it's things like that I just, you know, I want people to think, you know what, because I went on that training, I can now go out there and do therapy confidently. I don't need to go on another training course, and then another training course, and then another training course. I'll go on those training courses to learn, to keep learning, but I don't need to go on them before I start therapy, because who wants to spend, say, $2,500 on a training course, and then say, right, time to go on another $2,500 training course. Yeah, you want to go on a $2,500. I know. You want to go on a $2,500 training course, and then go and make £2,500
put it into practice
by putting it into practice. So that's what I want, and obviously, hopefully, that's what I get. And if I don't cover certain things, or someone, again, it's that whole thing of being egoless. I'm not the expert. There are things I know. There's knowledge I have, but I'm not the expert on what every individual wants. So I want to know from people, is there anything you don't think I've covered, or anything you think I could cover more of, or anything that you think I haven't covered in enough detail, or anything you think, oh, actually I disagreed with that, could you explain that in a bit more detail so I could see how that really fits with what you're talking about?
Which is helpful.
I want people to give me that feedback so that I can then cover it, because I've asked for it, I think I can then cover it. So I don't want to know this is my course, you learn what I tell you learn, I'm correct, you lot are wrong. You know, if someone can tell me something that's going to be useful for everyone, let's hear it, let's incorporate it. So so it's definitely about, I think, with being a therapist, being a human being, you need to be a bit egoless. You need to drop into people's lives, turn things around, but not feel compelled to make everything about you.
Same process as when you was a little boy. And it
really?
is.
And it is linking it back. It is that.
Linking it back to that.
it is all about being egoless and just about thinking, you know what, how important am I? I'm not really that important. I'm just a bit of a catalyst. There are things I know clearly because I've learnt them.
Oh yeah.
But I only know what I need to know to help someone else to find things for themselves.
Yes.
If they choose to take any of that on board and change, they did that. I didn't do it. I didn't force them to change. They chose to change. I don't force someone to stop being depressed. They choose to stop being depressed. I don't force someone to stop having a phobia. They choose to stop having it. They don't necessarily consciously choose to, but a part of their being chooses to. They take it all on board and they do it. I don't do it for them. It's their responsibility to do that.
Yes.
And it is definitely having that sort of egoless kind of, you know what, I'm not really that. And the same goes for problems.
Deep down, you are satisfied. You know you have this knowledge, this power, but you're not going about blowing your own trumpet.
And the same goes for problems as well. You know, who am I to obsess around why did they do that? Why did they do this? Why did they treat me like that? Why did it? Doesn't matter. It's not my issue. They acted how they acted. That was their choice. I act how I act, and that's my choice. So why should I let someone else's actions make me upset or make me anxious or make me depressed? Or you know, if someone tells a joke and I laugh, they told the joke with the intention of being funny, I like to think, but I chose to find it funny and to laugh. I could equally choose to ignore it and think, oh, I'm just not in the mood for that. As you do get people, you know, it's just their mental state at the time is, oh, I'm not in the mood for that, I'm not laughing at that. But then other times they'll happily laugh along to anything. So, you know, so it is having that sort of, you know what, I'm not really that important. None of us are really that important. We just go through our lives, and
you're very similar. No wonder you followed the teacher, Milton Erickson's ideas and that, etc. Because even when he was young, he had polio. He fought against forces outside of himself, but inwardly he was very, very strong, very knowledgeable, and he didn't have a huge ego.
And it is that thing. Someone that you know and that I know went through a large period where they were very ego-driven and didn't have the knowledge necessarily to back that ego up.
That's right.
So they would say, I am the best at this, I am the best at that, I made that happen, I made this happen. And if they influence someone, so for example, if I influenced you, if I was sat here talking to you and suddenly your eyes started closing and you started dropping off into a trance, and I knew I had done that to you, and then I brought you out of it and you had no memory of that, I wouldn't tell you, because I've got no desire to need to blow my own trumpet and say, oh, I'm so wonderful, I just hypnotised you without you realising it.
No.
But this friend of mine would.
Yes.
He, especially back when he was younger, he would do something where he's influenced somebody and then think, I've got to tell them how wonderful I've done and what I've just done. And that would backfire, because now you're suddenly, whereas the thing to do is, it doesn't really matter. You don't have to let everyone know everything you're capable of. It's not. It's like being a hypnotist. I get challenged in pubs. Not so much nowadays. I don't go into pubs very often. But when I was much younger, I'd get challenged a lot in pubs. Oh, you think you're a hypnotist? I bet you can't hypnotise me. You're right. Yeah, I bet you're no good. You're right. I'm not. I don't care if they think I am or not.
No, of course not.
And anyone around me will either know that I am or know that I'm not. I don't care what other people think particularly. So the way to dissolve the conflict wasn't to think, oh my God, he's challenging my authority, he's challenging my abilities, I've got to now do this and I've got to prove myself, because or else people are going to think I'm useless and think I'm rubbish and think I'm this and think I'm that. Why do I have to do that? That's a lot of effort. Why not just think, fair enough, you think I'm rubbish, you think I can't hypnotise you. Fair enough, there's no skin off my nose. I don't mind. It's not the end of the world.
No. We all come across that, don't we?
But I know there are some people that if they're challenged,
Yeah.
they will want to rise to that challenge. I think, oh, he's gonna, you know, especially among men, it seems. Yeah. Oh, he's threatening my manhood. He's threatening my image. He's threatening this. He's threatening that. Like, I've had people that have said, I could deck you. I'm bigger and tougher than you. You are, yes, and you could easily. I don't care. You know, yet I had experience of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of life-threatening conflict situations doing the work that I did.
Oh yes, yeah.
With
the
people
past,
pulling
with
guns
children,
on me and
yeah.
people, teenagers as old as 18, that
I
would
don't think the majority
physically
of people
violently
believe
attack
it.
me, and yet I never had a problem dealing with it. So these people that would come face to face with me in my private life, just because sometimes people are a bit drunk and a bit bolshy, my view was, well, actually, in my head, I'd be thinking, well, actually, I probably could handle you if you flew off the handles and went for me, because I've been doing it for years, handling people that are your size and your build, attacking me with knives and things. But do I need to tell you that? Is that really important? Or could I not just dissolve the conflict by saying, you're right, you are bigger and tougher than me, there is no way I'd stand up.
Does it really matter? Because deep down inside, you are satisfied.
Yeah.
You're satisfied with who and what you are, and your abilities.
And that is the most
anybody
important thing.
says. Yeah, and that goes right back to when you was a little boy. You grew up like that, doesn't
Well,
it?
at 8 years old, Mum had joined Amway to obviously try and make some extra money.
I think I've heard of
stuff,
them. Yes.
They've been around for quite a while, and they are sort of a forerunner to things like
perfumes and that.
Yeah,
isn't it?
they're sort of a forerunner to things like you get the I can't remember the things that people nowadays go around door to door delivering, and they leave the thing, and then you go and buy stuff and
Avon.
yeah,
Avon.
things like
Yes,
that.
Yes,
so it's sort of a forerunner to that. But
Yeah.
what they do is they recommend you read certain books and things. And so what had happened was when I was about 8, I saw on a shelf a green book called The Magic of Thinking Big, and so I picked it up and read it.
Yes,
I thought, well,
yes,
it's a book, and I liked science books. I liked fact-based books. By the age of 8, I'd grown out of story books pretty much, and I was now looking into psychology and things like that.
Yes.
And so I just picked it up and read it, and it talks about you can achieve whatever you want in life. You can achieve success if you want. You can plan for success. It teaches you how to do that, how to put processes into place. It teaches you can have self-belief. You can believe in yourself, and it teaches you all this positive stuff.
Yes.
And that was, a book I picked up and read at 8, and a lot of the concepts and ideas in it stuck with me, for years to come. So
I think what I value about you mostly is that positive thinking, etc. And as you say, that book, whatever, what it was called, positive
Magic of Thinking Big.
Magic of Thinking Big. A lot of people in all walks of life, they do apply all these techniques and things to get to the top. But there's hardly any wisdom in it, any of it. It just feeds their selfishness. They want more of this, more of that.
It's a difference between
wisdom,
being and doing.
Yes.
A lot of people are just doing. A lot of people take these things, apply them as techniques, and walk over everyone to use the techniques to walk over everyone to get where they want to go. Whereas if you're being these techniques, then it's a totally different thing.
A big difference.
You're being someone who's able to just achieve success, and who's happy if you don't achieve success. You have failure, but you're happy to pick yourself up and carry on. Who's happy to think, you know what, I'm happy with who I am as a being. Who's happy to focus on, let's try and see how we can move things forward, rather than getting obsessed around trying to do techniques to move forward. Being is far more important than just doing.
So I've heard of somebody recently that it's got really to the top, really to the top in their career. And the reason is that they are very, very aggressive, assertively aggressive, and they're willing to go along that line. But they've also been on the various courses. They started off, was it Carnegie or something? One of his courses, various courses, NLP courses. They've done the whole lot, and they're quite willing now to be very aggressive with it, assertively aggressive. But that they lack any wisdom, any knowledge, any depth of being, which is sad. And in actual fact, this is the way our society is going. That they have these group training courses, etc. But they don't apply wisdom to it. Love for and companionship and compassion for other people. It's just the basic training, how to get what you want out of it, and how to get to the top. Whereas as I say, meeting you and knowing you for all these years has been very, very helpful, in the way of my own self-development, and it's good to have a rapport with somebody that comes from that depth of wisdom and understanding, compassion, and I wouldn't say lack of ego, because we've all got ego, but reduce the ego.
I think it's more an awareness of ego.
Yeah, awareness, yeah.